The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We are in week 2 now of our 7-week series in Psalm 23, and I am back here once again with Scott and Terence. Hi guys. Yeah, glad we made it through to number 2. Yeah, we're already, wow, I don't know what percentage of the way there we are, but we're doing great.
We got a second season.
A second season. The Detroit Lambs are doing great. I love it. Okay, awesome. So this week we're in verse 2 of Psalm 23, kind of starts a little bit into verse 3. We're looking at the lines, He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. So three little lines there. And every week the groups are being asked what word or phrase from today's line jumps out at you today. And so that's kind of what I wanted to ask the two of you, even if it's just right now as I read it or as you're reading it. What jumps out at you from that verse?
I think what jumps out to me is He makes me lie down. The fact that He makes me lie down is kind of strong language. It doesn't say I decided to lie down, or I wanted to lie down. No, God made me lie down. And it makes me think that sometimes God puts rhythms of restorative rest in our lives. There are times that He wants us to pull away from the activity of life and spend time with Him, being restored. And so, and sometimes that might not feel good, but that might be what's best for us, for our soul care. And so that stood out to me, that He makes me lie down.
That is curious phraseology, yeah, because no one needs to make me lie down. I lie down voluntarily and I go to sleep. But and makes me lie down in green pastures, even the best pastures, the best bedding, the best mattress. Why would somebody to make you lay down in such ideal circumstances? But I don't think sheep rest easily. Sheep are nervous animals. They're mostly prey in the animal kingdom. They're always on alert. They can't rest. They can't sleep. Sleep can mean death for them. But if they have a shepherd protecting them, they can at last rest. And the shepherd's got to tell them, you can rest now. I don't think David could rest when he was on the run from Saul. I don't think he slept a lot at night. I think he was up a lot. But at some point, the good shepherd says, "No, you can rest. You must rest."
That reminds me of that line in, I think it's Psalm 121, that Psalm of the Ascents, where there's a specific line in there where it's like a line of assurance that the Lord of Israel, that the Watcher of Israel doesn't sleep. That you can rest because the Lord doesn't have to. I think, that's some of the gods that are mentioned in like the Old Testament, right? Like Elijah, in the prophets of Baal are there kind of having a face-off with Elijah, and he called out, kind of taunts them. So maybe the God is asleep. You gotta do something to wake him up, or you gotta. But our shepherd doesn't need that. He doesn't sleep, and so I think it's interesting. Your line also reminds me of things that I heard somebody talk about once. A parent trying to put a child down for a nap. Yeah, and thinking about making them lie down. And when you first put a kid down in a crib, how often does that go smoothly? Yeah.
And tussle.
And then
night.
Yeah. Until you get to our age, and then you're like, oh please, can I nap? I love that. Awesome. But then if we're thinking about the rhythms of rest there and things like that, I also kind of strikes me that the study this week and the sermon this week, it's called Greener Pastures. So the verse says he makes me lie down in green pastures, but the sermon's called greener pastures. Why is that? Kind of getting behind the scenes look.
Comparison is the thief of joy. And I think there's something in the human heart that's always longing for the greener pastures. Even if you have green pastures, might there be somewhere that's greener? And so, yeah, that's what we're thinking about, this idea of comparison and how it can steal joy from us. So
you got to be careful for sure with comparison, and yet I think we're saying for most of us there are greener pastures that are available. Philip Keller, in his little landmark book, A Shepherd's Look at Psalm 23, Philip Keller was an actual shepherd, and a shepherd in East Africa, and he writes about his field was next to a shepherd that was not a good shepherd and didn't manage the area, and the sheep ate up all the grass, and it was brown, and the shepherd didn't seem to care much for the sheep. And Phil Keller says those sheep were pressed up against the fence, looking into his green pasture, maybe longing to come into his pasture field, maybe longing for a new kind of shepherd. And I think that this is a challenge, too, of whoever's shepherding you, maybe there's a better shepherd. Maybe there's a better pasture. Maybe there's a better option for you. Got to be careful. It's not just the comparisons that we are all prone to, but a legitimate alternative to whatever you're fighting now.
And that is striking that how often, and again in the Old Testament, how often are Israel's shepherds called out, right? And for not doing their job faithfully. And you're like, hey, and you think you mentioned last week that when Jesus arrives at the scene, it looks like they don't even have a shepherd. So yeah, there's definitely.
I think every shepherd on earth must acknowledge and understand that they are under shepherd.
Right.
So I'm an under shepherd. Anything or anyone that has been entrusted to me is ultimately under the care and authority of Jesus first as the ultimate shepherd. So I think that's why those shepherds were getting called out, because they had accountability to the great shepherd. And so I think that's something to keep in mind as well. So
Exodus 34 would be another good passage. It's in the curriculum, but a great one for small groups to look at. So many comparisons to Psalm 23. It's very stern words for shepherds who are shepherding well. But then there is this phrase here, if I can find it, where God says, "I will pasture them. I will not I will pasture them, not I will pasteurize them. I will pasture them. Not pasture them. The times the shepherds need to do that, but I will pasture. I will provide green pastures for that they can rest and they can eat and feed. This idea of a shepherd of provision is very much in there. But that image of a pasture as being a place of rest and provision, and that's what God does for us, even when we don't know we need it. It's amazing that 3,000 years later, this hits with our tendencies to not want to take care of ourselves, not wanting to rest, having trouble. We think it's an American issue, but apparently this has been an issue for 3,000 years.
It's interesting that you say that, not wanting to take care of ourselves, but at the same time, talked before about the tendency to want to take care of ourselves. That we have a desire for independence, but then also kind of you don't really know what is best for you. You naturally, left to your own devices, you're going to do something unhealthy, or you're going to go astray, or you're not going to not going to trust the shepherd, and you're going to end up worse off. And so do you really believe that, that without your good shepherd, you would be worse off? I
think us as sheep, we might be tempted to leave the shepherd to pursue those greener pastures. I think we might think that we know what's best for us. And so what's best for us is that greener pasture. But as we do that, we leave behind the good shepherd and the provision that he gives to us. As I look at the passage, I see just a lot of language that points back to Jesus and the role that he plays. It says, he makes me lie down. He leads me. He refreshes. He guides. So he makes, he leads, he refreshes, he guides. And that's the kind of shepherd that we have. And so that makes me ask myself, why would I leave that kind of shepherd behind? Why would I leave the shepherd that makes me lie down and rest, that leads me, that refreshes me, that guides me? Why would I leave? Why would I leave him behind? So
Yeah. And yeah, he knows, trusting him, trusting his knowledge, following. It kind of strikes me, I think about just now when I read Beside the Still Waters, and as you were talking imagery, I kind of think about times that I've spent, on kind of long distance hikes and how important water is, and water that is potent, drinkable water. And then here you got a shepherd who, and I think about, the image of you're not just walking through the water and then away from it, but just always, it's always, right there. Like you're being led along a place that is giving you ready access to, nourishment, something that, life, right? Living waters, as it were. It's, yeah.
Yeah, sheep don't do well with moving waters, and I've heard they're afraid of it. They're afraid of everything, but this water, they're I think the sheep reason. I'm a highly absorbent animal. I fall into this. I soak it all up. I'm a big cotton ball. I go down and drown. So a good shepherd would kind of block some of the moving water to create an area of still water where there's no fear and where the sheep can drink and get refreshed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point about with no fear. And I think about, big wide pasture that's, fence around it where you can just eat in peace. You have water that is being cared for and, in peace, and how often we let, the kind of fear and anxiety and the next, what am I going to be wanting for tomorrow, like we talked about, last week, kind of seeking first the kingdom. But yeah, wow, there's a lot of good stuff here. But what about the, so alongside that, paired with this, the last line today, he restores my soul. How does that fit in here with the whole, it's kind of concrete picture of, okay, green pastures, still waters, but then suddenly shepherd restores your sheep's soul. How does that?
I think you got to go back to the original context on this one.
Yeah.
David's on the run. He's running for his life. He has people after him that want him gone. And I imagine that's very exhausting. I imagine that his soul is very weary. And here we have him seeking to be restored by his shepherd. His shepherd is the one that's going to bring restoration to his weary, tired, and fearful soul. So I think that's ministry to us to hear that we have a shepherd that can bring restoration to us if we find ourselves tired, worn down by life. I think David is ministering to us in that way in this passage.
Yeah, it's deeper than just physical. God provides provision for the food for the sheep and the water for the sheep. But when you start talking about soul, you've left just the physical realm, and you're talking about something much deeper. We can rest, we can sleep, we need to sleep, but there's a kind of fatigue that sleep doesn't fix. There's a kind of hunger that food doesn't fix, and so it kind of escalates from the physical to the non-physical. And I think this line resonates with people. Because I think most people have a sense that my soul needs to be restored.
Yeah, and all things, right, being restored to health, and the Bible is definitely a very, very practical in your needs, right? And think about how often it's okay. Sometimes you just need food and a nap, and you'll feel better. But then also, okay, once you kind of run that diagnostic test, if there's still an issue, maybe when we start to look, deeper. But
this points back to Scott's point. This points back to the fact that Jesus is the Messiah who's come to bring restoration to all things. This points to him being that redeeming, restoring king that's going to restore all of creation from the body to the soul. So, yeah.
I love this. Right? Any other thoughts from on this verse? Either, last week we talked a bit about your own perspectives as pastors. I don't know if there's any insight this week from your own experience, or any last thoughts you want to share before we toss it back to the group?
I think this is a good reminder for where we should look. This is a reminder for us to know that if we are seeking that kind of restoration, if we're seeking that kind of help, we can look to the shepherd. And so I think this is just a good reminder of where to look.
Yeah, it's about a fear or fatigue or whatever we're dealing with. Rather than turn to Xanax or medical solutions. There might be a deeper issue at play that only the Good Shepherd can really meet. How good is this Good Shepherd to care about our physical well-being and the status of our soul, the wellness, this restorative God. The whole Bible is about the restoration of all of creation, and we see that in a very caring, personal way in Psalm 23.
Right. And then like we mentioned last week, right, that we're always going to be looking at those two sides of us both as sheep and as shepherds. So then there'll be a time today in the curriculum in your discussions to look at that, both you as a sheep in need of the rest and the restoration, but then also having those eyes, for the sheep as under shepherds. Okay, where can we be the hands and feet, right, of Christ? Where can we be the under shepherds, bringing that restoration, right? And there's so much that's good here. And I think about, having the reason that we're restored, the purpose we're restored for, right? That God sees, that we're meant to be stewards. We were created to be stewards, and he restores us, again, for a purpose, because we've got good work to do. And
I guess great passage for Lent, in which people often engage in restorative practices during Lent. There's a season where we're kind of more open to this, and that's great to focus that in this unique season.
Yeah. Well, there are so many more good passages to get into to connect with these verses, and that's what you're going to do now in your groups. So I hope the discussion goes well. Can't wait to hear about it. Have a great time, and I'll see you next week.